everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Rift Talks for UGC. I'm your host, Dave Troop, and this show is going to be very League of Legends based in terms of competitive play. So if you guys are looking for a new competitive podcast, this is your new home. Essentially, what we'll be covering in this show is, LCS primarily, teamfight tactics as well. Those are probably going to be the two biggest focuses, but based on what guests we have and kind of what's going on in the world of League of Legends, we could also be talking about EULCS, LCK, LEC, not EULCS. That's how you know I've been a long time fan of the game. I've been around the scene for quite a few years, so I'm very excited to be doing League of Legends content. As for some of the segments and the type of content you can expect to see on the show, we're going to be having guests, interviews. We might be getting a co-host, so it might not just be me every week. Hopefully, TM soon. We're going to be doing some TFT patches and patch reviews, notes, all that sort of stuff, as well as VODs, for TFT. Also, some team fight breakdowns in regular League of Legends. We will be kind of breaking down certain fights that were, close and game deciding and interesting to myself or to one of my guests, and kind of going through that in some detail. Regular patch notes, community discussions, all the good stuff that you'd expect to see from a League of Legends podcast. We will have it here for you. But with all that being said, and the quick housekeeping out of the way, it gives me great pleasure to let you guys know that we do have a guest this week for our very inaugural show, Leviathan. He's a coach that, for longtime fans, needs no introduction. He's worked with some top-tier organizations, Gambit, G2, Alliance. So, Jordan, how are you?
And the crowd goes wild. Oh, my roommate there. I want to podcast, bro, so try to keep the comments down. What's up, Dave? Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it. Just taking a break from my tireless team fight tactics grinding to come on the show here. So this better be good, man. You're taking me away from my grind.
Oh, it's taking me away from my grind too, to be honest. So yeah, let's hope it is good, because the ladder doesn't sleep, right?
For sure, man. What's on your mind today, bro? What can I do for you?
Well, first, I think it would be really cool to kind of go through a little bit of your history and a little bit of your past. I'm sure a lot of really hardcore fans and the more serious fans among us know who you are and know your history and what you've done. But obviously, League of Legends being a game that is incredibly popular, you have a huge turnover in terms of the popularity and the fan base, and you have a lot of new people coming into the scene all the time. So could you give us a little bit of a background on yourself and what you've done in your career path so far to date, that kind of like top-down view of who you are?
Sure, man. So I grew up in Canada, in New Westminster and Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. I played a lot of video games and a lot of sports growing up. I think I started playing lacrosse at the age of 5. That was my main sport. But I've also played hockey, basketball. I've hit the tennis ball a couple of times. Just always had that sports life going on. In 2005, I was one of the highest ranked NHL 2005 players in the PS2. But back then, that didn't mean anything. There was no esports NHL 2005 league. So just kind of had that off to the side while I was playing rep hockey, rep lacrosse, and whatnot. Fast forward to the, I guess, World of Warcraft era, which is my high school era. I did a lot of economy related things. Like I always had buckets of gold. I hit gold cap once. And I also had a gladiator title in season 5. Just moving right along, I'm basically just plowing through every game that I've played. And then once League of Legends comes along, I got stuck in silver for a bit. This was coming out of beta season 1, season 2. Didn't quite understand what was going on in terms of my rank, but I had great LAN performances. So there was 2 League of Legends tournaments in Vancouver. One was GodaCon. The other one was Vancouver. Shout out to both those. I don't think either of them run anymore. But that was really the breeding ground for a lot of the pro players that have passed through the LCS halls. We had Heaven Time, Laud. I know I'm going to forget a bunch of people. Bobkin came out of there. I can't remember if there's other people. I think maybe Bishu came to a tournament once or twice. But Hanser was always the one who took me out. I don't have a Vancouver Godicon title, I think strictly because of Hanser. But yeah, man, just growing up, we had this little group called ISP, International Space Pimps, based out of Abbotsford. Yeah, no, we were great. We were great. And then we were all silvers and golds, just a little team. But I remember we were in a win and in to get out of group stage in some Godicon tournament, probably like Godicon 2013 or something like that. And we're up against an all diamond team. They weren't stacked, like they weren't the best team in the tournament, but they all had diamond rank. And I played a Wriggles Lantern, uh, Iceborne Gauntlet Ezreal jungle, and as soon as the Iceborne Gauntlet was finished, all of us grouped 5 and pushed mid, and we actually took out an all diamond team and got into the playoff stage as all silvers using turbo cheese that I invented. So that kind of put me on the map locally as the guy that plays Ezreal jungle. In the to finish off the story, Ezreal got banned all 3 games in the playoffs and we lost. I wasn't, I wasn't deep in the cheese there. But this is all before, even getting my first shot at competitive. I think the most important thing for me was going to these LAN tournaments and networking and keeping communication going, like between games, walking over to the table area of the other people and introducing myself. Hi, I'm the jungler that you just played against, and then just seeing where the conversation goes. That got me an analyst tryout on New World Eclipse. Shout out to Nprom Siri, Quas. Those guys were my first team. We went to PAX and lost in the first round of Cognitive, which was like so old school. Now that I'm looking back at it, like we had no idea what we were doing. But just like putting in the grind in the Challenger series, I coached maybe 4 or 5. I say coach, but at the time we called it analyst work. But you just did what a coach would do, so I'm calling it coaching now. We were just going through the motions team by team. I was working with Broken Shard and Prawley on complexity. I spent some time on Napkins in Disguise, which had the best player in the world to never go pro, Flappy Bearfish. He was a collegiate player who I think was legitimately the highest level player at the time, but he just went with school. Like you ask any other old school player from that time, Flappy was king. So when he retired, we kind of lost our hopes with that team. But yeah, I was working with complexity going into the 2014 spring promotion tournament. Ended up getting sick. I coached that team for maybe, I'd say, 8 to 10 months. And then in the last like 1 or 2 months, I passed the reins off to Coobs, and Coobs held it down. He was the one who went to LAN and was really brought the physical presence. That was good. I think Coobs did a good job considering his experience and whatever at the time. But that itself, with the team promoting, allowed me to, have a resume where there was no coaches back in 2014. Man, there was me, Alex Penn. Shout out to Alex Penn. He's got one of the most legendary tweets of all time. That 2-0 comeback tweet. There's no way they'll come back from this. Yeah, man. No, once I had that championship, or not the championship, but the promotion, Alliance picked me up, and we won EULCS. We went to Worlds. We have a perfect game over Najin White Shield, and also we have the Kaboom loss, which I'm sure I'll have to get into more later. I don't think I've really delved deep into the reasons behind that. But yeah, man, no. So from Alliance, we go to Gambit. I had something to prove because I felt like my time spent on Alliance was good and bad. Like, so I'm still a rookie coming into all this, right? Like a lot of my success was at the very beginning of my coaching career. I'd been a game player up until like 2013, and then I just made the switch to coaching. So we win EULCS. A lot of it is Froggen, like 90% plus of it is just Froggen being Froggen. But the whole time I'm watching and learning, right? Like I'm providing structure to his thoughts. I'm using spreadsheets. I'm writing things down. It's basically having a Jordan or Michael Jordan, LeBron James in your team. You don't try to coach them, you try to enable them. So I felt like I had something to prove coming off of that season, especially with the the way Kaboom went down. So I switched to Gambit, who was in 10th at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They try me out for IEM Cologne. They say, I'm at home in Vancouver, and they say, hey, we're looking at picking up a coach next year. Do you want to try out with us by helping us for the IEM? I say, sure. I create this awesome strategy because CLG had to send Think Card to this tournament instead of their main jungler. I forget who it was at the time, but Think Card was playing. What ends up happening is we devised this triple ban the jungler and always attack the jungler strategy, where I basically told the boys, look, their worst player on their team is the jungler. So anytime you have a fight or an engagement or some sort of action, make sure Think Card is one of the people pressing buttons in that fight, because he's the most likely one to make an error. And I think we 3-0'd them, or it was 3-0 or 3-1. It was very convincing. And so that gave me the job. Went to Gambit. They went from 10th to 4th by the end of the year. We had that legendary 05 to 7-5 run. And I think a lot of that was just establishing fundamentals within the game, understanding. I think the biggest rule that I had to take away was you can't learn how to play late game until you learn how to play the mid game. You can't learn how to play the mid game until you learn how to play the early game. So we're just going to start at the bottom and just keep improving our game until it gets to the point where it's a complete game, and then we can go from there. But let's just make sure we're on the sticks correctly. And yeah, we had a lot of success. We ended up getting knocked out in the quarterfinals by Unicorns of Love, who were like the first team to really embrace cheese.
Yeah.
Uh, they really punished us too, because we were in the break room. I don't know, in LCS they have like a catering section. There's like a place with TV and there's a place with couches, but then there's a room that's just food. And so half the players are in the TV room, half the players are munching down on snacks. And we're in there after a game. Unicorns Love are about to play. We just played. Um, and we're talking about cheese. And I mentioned that Jungle Shaco was actually broken. And I had mentioned this to Gambit, but Gambit wasn't down for picking up the Shaco. And then what's funny is Unicorns of Love ends up playing Shaco in the last game to eliminate us from the playoffs. And that was a strategy I had given them like 10 or 11 weeks ago, and I had forgot. And they last picked Shaco. I only get like 30 seconds on the headset to tell my team how to play against Shaco. And yeah, man, like that was a wild exit. So from there, I didn't get along well with the Russians because it's a different culture, right? Like, um, I how do I say this? I'm from Canada. I didn't have the best of role models growing up. I was raised by like a single mother, so when it came to having like quality life skills, I didn't really have them. Especially because the first team I was on where I traveled was Winter or Alliance, and we had one of those AFK managers. It An AFK manager is someone who says they manage the team and has the team title of manager, yet you have no idea where the fuck they are at any time whatsoever. Like they check in once a week or once a month. They say some generic, uh, inspirational shit, and they go on. Uh, I think Jacob, the guy who I'm bashing here, I think he's a good guy. I think his heart's in it. I haven't seen him work in a very long time. I'm sure he's improved. He has good work ethic, nice guy. We shared a hotel room together. Love chatting with him. But he got the job, I think, because he was Alex Garfield's friend, and Alex Garfield couldn't own two teams, so he
Right.
sold it to Jacob.
Yeah.
And like when you want to talk about a rookie coach coming into the league, you need to have someone who's been there and done that to show them the ropes, like how to live in a gaming house, how to take care of your body and health and hygiene, how to eat, how to hold yourself, all these sorts of things. I had none of this in my life coming up at this point. And then so when you contrast that with this Gambit Russian team, and anyone who's successful coming out of Russia has their shit together. Like they're very smart, clean, like tidy people with good work ethic, good business sense. I think Groove just didn't see that in me at the time, which was true, which I think was like one of the major reasons why I was let go. But when you boil down what I was able to do on the Rift, the stats and numbers speak for itself. And then if you run down the rest of my resume, Winter Fox, we had a bad season, but that was because I was a late coaching addition. I didn't get to pick my roster. And then in week 3, when I proposed roster changes, I said we needed to pick up Dardoch, Acadian, and Gate, and all we needed was 10 grand, and the team wouldn't pull the trigger, and which made no sense to me because I'm sure that was like a week's worth of rent at this LA mansion we had. And so we ended up blowing the season. It was like 1-9 or 1-7 or however many losses you get with one win. From there, I go home. I have some problems in my family life. My relationship with my mother isn't the best. I don't have much family, so I'm living out in some shitty 1 bedroom in Abbotsford, just depressed as all hell, drinking every day. And then G2 gives me a call and says, hey, we want to try you out as analyst. So I help them with getting through a promotion tournament. They qualify for LCS, and then they drop me. Why do they drop me? I don't know, but they drop me. From there, I battle with my mental health. I have to fix my relationship with my mother. I'm doing occasional team gigs here and there. The quality of the work is high, but the quality of life I'm living is pretty bad. I tried to go on to Fnatic, and I helped Fnatic make the Zerat portal strategy, but I was missing deadlines, and Daler thought I was more of a liability. We're still good buddies. We talk now and then. And yeah, man, I think like the last 3 years of my life, I've been helping occasional teams here, like on the spot, like as people need my help. But I've just been trying to make Leviathan a better person, focusing on my mental health, my lifestyle, my morals and ethics and values. And I think in the past like year or so, I've started to reach that like satisfactory to good level of person. And so now I'm coming out of this like I was already a tactical genius. Like I'm calling myself one. I'm sorry, I have the same birthday as Kanye West, so we got that similar energy. Our Mercury's going retrograde together, or however that shit works. But I feel like I've always had the tactics and the knowledge, and now I'm coming out of all this feeling pretty good. And yeah, just like a summary, I'm a sports guy. I've been playing sports my whole life, been not bad at them, always been playing video games. And then you give me this game, League of Legends, it's like a sports video game. And I don't know, I start popping off. Life slips, but I'm back. So yeah, hopefully that was a good enough intro. I have some diehard fans. Like who is that guy on MTV that got really big and then fell off? You know who I'm talking about? You're the older guy.
I'm not a big MTV guy.
Okay. Well, exactly. See, you can't even remember that guy. I can't remember his name either, but he's got some diehard fans. And I think that's what's with me. Either you don't know me, or you don't like me for obvious reasons. I've stated a couple of them why someone wouldn't like me, or you're madly in love with me. So if you're new to me, what's up? And if you're one of my diehard fans, what's up too? I love you guys.
Well, that was a very, very good summary, I think, of your career, and I think you were very, very fair about a lot of it. It's pretty obvious that to be a coach and to kind of do it the way you did, because I think there's a couple things there that I kind of want to unpack a little bit. When you got into League of Legends and started really doing this, I mean, esports was not at all what it is today, right? I've been around a long time too, and it's to see the evolution from maybe the first tournaments, even within League of Legends, because I mean there was Halo before that, which is actually where I got my start in esports. But to have the level of like professionalism, I guess you would call it, over the past decade it's grown exponentially in terms of what is expected, what are the roles. Like there weren't really, I mean, coaches at the beginning were there, like you said, they were basically an analyst, right? Now we have separate jobs where the coach is kind of somebody who manages the analysts and manages the players and manages all these different things, and the analyst is strictly the in-game guy. It's interesting because you got into coaching really, and were so successful right away, honestly. Like you were working with some of the greatest teams. You got a lot of this early traction growing. I think it's smart that you've taken a couple of years to really focus on yourself after as you pointed out, there's a couple of things that you thought you needed to improve on personally. Obviously that'll just help you. What is your goal now with coaching in this space? Are you trying to get back into like a head coach position, analyst work, a full-time analyst? Do you like being kind of the for hire kind of like jack of all trades that can come in and solve a problem no matter what the team has. Like, how do you position yourself now in the coaching market, and what is your goal for the next year or two in that space?
All right, so I have a relationship. A good question, by the way. I have a relationship building with the gaming stadium, which is like a Vancouver-run company that's really focusing on growing esports in the space. They have the first fully functional esports arena. I go there on Sundays and Wednesdays to play teamfight tactics tournaments, and I just really love it. Uh, the the coaching for me is kind of in a tough spot because I can't get past the application phase with any LCS or LEC teams. They read the resume, they look at the name, and they say, "Oh, we don't like that guy." So those teams never even let me get a phone call in. So I've completely stopped looking at those teams. Then once you get down to collegiate, a lot of the collegiate schools that want coaches want someone who's graduated from college. I dropped out of high school at the age of 16 to play poker full time. So I don't even have my GED. If I do need to make money and I don't have any coaching things long term, I can throw $200 on Poker Stars and play 50 cent and $1 tournaments, and then after 50,000 games, come out with a nice profit. But there's no fun in that whatsoever. Poker is completely monotonous to me. I get no enjoyment whatsoever from any specific aspect of it. It's simply a means to create currency. When it comes to coaching one-on-one, I love coaching one-on-one. I just want, or I just sent off a video to Rick Fox trying to see if I can coach him. My DMs are always open if people want to book me for one-on-one coaching. The problem with the European regional league teams is a lot of them, like a lot of the times I've been in conversations with those types of teams, they only want to pay about 100 or 200 euros a month for 80-hour work weeks. And I know that there are some ERL teams that do have budgets that maybe are Division One teams in good regions that, I don't want to badmouth those guys. Don't just assume every ERL team pays nothing, but the ones that I have talked to have paid nothing. Some people also try to talk to me and ask me for strategies for free, ask if they want me to come to tryouts or help them pick a roster. And I'll ask, well, how much do I get paid? And they said, oh, I thought you just want to do it. And no, I don't want to just do that. So recently I invented, well, I don't know if I invented, but I broke kleptomancy. So kleptomancy stacks are not completely random. They follow a game show like payout pattern that when the stacks are used at specific in-game times, give a reward of 110 gold or 100 gold, depending on what ones you're hunting. And I spent maybe a week developing that theory and crunching it and then getting it ready. And then no one really gave a shit. Some of my diehard fans, like I mentioned before, were retweeting and eating it up and abusing it in their solo queue games. But I had just done my next break in the game. Like I broke Zerat Portal. I predicted Ardent Sensor 6 months ahead of the meta. If you look at any of my teams, we've always drafted off meta. Like Diamond was the first Nidalee and Sejuani players under my reign. He said he wanted it to be good, so we explored it. Shook played Rammus against C9 at Worlds.
I remember that.
Yeah, Froggen played Tristana mid into Xerath on Xpeke at the EULCS 2014 final. So I've always been about, staying a step ahead, using what's called information gap. So like everyone used to copy the Koreans, but then there was no information gap because you were playing strategies that they knew. And they were going to play it at a higher rate and be more successful, so your win chance was gigalow. But when you use information gap, your opponent isn't prepared how to play the game, and then the clock is ticking on them how to learn how to play it. And oftentimes, by the time they figure out how to play against your unique strategy, they've already lost the game. And then you throw out the strategy and go to a new one. But I had just made this kleptomancy abuse, discovered it, and it didn't get me anywhere. And with the announcement of Teamfight Tactics, my door is always open, my email is always open. If there's a team around the world that wants me as an asset to their club, whether it be sports psychology or tactical reasons, they want me to do replay or scout the enemies, all things I'm capable of doing, I'll listen. But I'm tired of the fact that when I'm a coach, there's no coach solo queue ladder for me to express my level at. And so people take the level that they saw me at in 2014 and 2015 and then assign me a value. And it's become mentally crippling not being in control of my own destiny. So that's why I made this switch to team fight tactics. But yeah, door's always open. Someone wants to give me a call.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see how that would be frustrating because you have accomplished a lot and worked with a lot of top tier organizations. So it is kind of, for me, it's a little bit eye opening that you haven't been offered anything serious. But I think you touched on something that's actually pretty important in the sense that when people, people that do come to you sometimes, they say, well, don't you just want to do this? Like, shouldn't you want to do this for free? And I feel like it's kind of this weird space that esports is still in right now, where it's very much a passion industry, right? Like a lot of the people who are doing this, we're doing it because we love this space. We love these games that we're talking about, and it kind of, that can, as great as that is, and that's very likely to make you good at your job because you're very interested and genuinely passionate and you love what you're doing. It can also work against you in the sense that people go, but yeah, don't you want this opportunity? You should just do it for free. You don't need to get paid. This is like a dream. Like, and because of that, that can kind of almost work against people in a sense. How would you recommend other people handle that, when they're starting out? Because, I know that the lower down the ladder you are in terms of, your experience, your credibility, all those sorts of things, the more likely you are to get offered that sort of scenario where it's like, hey, yeah, you can do this, but we're not going to pay you anything for it. Are you on mute? Okay. Not sure what happened there. Hopefully he comes back in a second. I'm guessing it might just be an internet issue or something along those lines. While he's gone, let's kind of jump around a little bit because I am very excited to keep talking to him and to kind of get back.
Hello?
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Wonderful. Yeah, I don't know. I pressed the button and it didn't work, and then I tried unplugging it and it didn't work. So I dropped call and that worked. You got to go through the sequence of options. So, the thing with working for free is it's great if you need it. Like if you need that crap on your resume, if you're just a guy from Montana with a dog and you want to get into esports, then go coach the Turkish Division 3, a League of Legends team, right? And get paid 40 nickels a week, right? Like go ahead and do it, or get paid nothing, whatever. But dude, I've been in this game 7 years, man, like 8 years, but I'm 28 years old. I say I've been playing games for 28 years. So I don't need to help some random Division 2 Nordic team for nickels. Like it's not worth my time. I know my work's good. And the problem with that whole work for free thing is if you're getting someone to do a job for free, especially in the esports space, if they're any good at their job, they're not going to take that. So anyone who does take that job is either going to be an absolute fraud or they're going to be a 100% rookie. And they're going to go through this time where they're working, and they're just not going to be maximum efficiency. Like when you hire me, you get like 7 years quality. Like one of the last teams I've coached, Zen Garden, we were trying to go through the UK Pro team or Pro League, get into the UK League, whatever it's called, UK Prem. All those kids, I'm sure if you ask them right now, would say I'm the best coach that they've had. I only coached them for 2 weeks, but I knew going in what the goals were. I had schedules laid out. We were bonding, we were strategizing. All of our spirits were high. We were practicing, laughing, having a great time. And you're not going to get that for free. So if you're a new player coming up or a new coach, you get an opportunity like that to do something for free, take it. But only take so many of them. I think you can only take like 1 or 2 of those free gigs. And orgs really got to stop handing them out. If you're in a spot where you can't afford to pay the people that are doing the job that you want to do, you're in the wrong space. You should be scaling down your dreams or your business model or whatever to make sure that when you are running a company and there's, X amount of people you can afford to pay, that there aren't jobs being left out and being given like out to people and not paying them. It's like all the times that I've done free coaching, I've just been learning the whole time. And at the end of the day, I really couldn't give a shit if the team, like I could care if the team succeeded because that's the part of the coaching thing, but I'm really there getting my feet wet, trying to learn what works, what doesn't. So yeah, I think it's on the org's responsibility. Just like stop offering those jobs.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I kind of agree with you. Like, I think, if you're very, very new, if you have never coached before, yeah, you need to take like a free gig or two just to get your resume there, right? No one can be rightfully expected to pay somebody who's literally never done the job, especially with how complicated coaching has got, right? It's not coaching in 2012, when we didn't really have the scene, and it wasn't very professionalized, and nobody really knew what the coach's job was to be, or the analysts. Like, it's very different now. The expectations for a coach and the coaching staff in general are much higher. So it's good to get your feet wet, I think, but I completely agree with what you said, that, you can only take so many of those before people just associate you with that guy who's willing to coach for free, or girl. So be smart about it, people.
Yeah, man. No, and don't miss on the last point. We got to talk to them orgs. Those orgs got to pay. Like, just come on. It's so easy to get money. Like, step 1, buy a suit. Step 2, write a business plan. Step 3, go to a conference wearing a suit, holding a business plan in your hand. Step 4, talk to old people with money. Step 5, get the money. Step 6, pay your players. It's easy. There you go.
Oh man, that is fantastic.
It's exactly what it is.
Esports is a huge buzzword today too. There's a lot of people looking to get into it, so it's definitely not what it was, when both of us were kind of starting out, when there was literally zero money in the space, and it was, most people weren't like, I think a lot of people got into it at that time, didn't even know if it was going to be a job. Like, a lot of people were just doing it for the love of it, right? Like, nobody was making a full living. Like, maybe there was a couple people, but it definitely wasn't like, oh yeah, this is a stable career path, I can do this for a living. Like, that wasn't anything people were considering. And
yeah, dude,
fast forward 10 years.
To run on that, I earned what I would consider a real livable wage in esports for a combined total of like a year and 2 months. And so if you think that I've started coaching in 2013 and like I've never strayed away, like I've worked 3 shifts at a superstore. I've worked 4 shifts at a fish and chips place. I've worked 2 weeks at a Subway. Is all like when coaching's just real bad, you gotta make a buck. But other than that, I've been on a team or looking for a team or working, doing online coaching. I've only made a living wage like a year and 2 months. Now I'm sure someone with a better Patreon money making skills or having a better business background could have done better than me, but that's still the reality, right? Like, the amount of times I've like made money in a month and looked at it and just been like, well, okay, so we got rent, then we got food, and then, well, we don't even really have food, so we got to get the shitty people food, and then you know where the rest of the story goes.
Yeah, I think it's a story a lot of industry people can relate to. I've had a similar sort of path in terms of after, between finishing school and just kind of, not wanting to commit myself full time to a career that was outside of esports, because I didn't want anything to take away time from what I really wanted to do, right? So occasionally, you have a couple of months that don't go as well in terms of what's going on, and you got to make a sacrifice and pick up a regular job or something for a little bit. And those are the stories that I personally find kind of heartwarming, though, because it really shows what this industry overall is made of. It's not, people who are here just trying to make $1 million and walk away. It's people who are incredibly passionate about what they do and wanting to do it. And, a lot of the casters that I know, a lot of the journalists that I know, that was kind of their story. They were doing something else. They were working a retail job or something like that, that would allow them to, go to work. But it wasn't like a career that was going to be mentally draining, in the sense that then they couldn't come home and work for another 6 hours on, their craft and on writing or on VOD review or all these sorts of things, right? I will say I've seen a couple of the VODs review things that you've kind of done as a coach just on the internet, and you're pretty good at it. That's why I think I think I reached out to you after one of them. Just kind of, I think that's how we met originally.
Cool, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
But definitely, guys, if you haven't checked that out, or if you haven't checked out his services, I do recommend them. So let's kind of transition a little bit here now to TFT. And I'll give you the floor in case you do want to discuss that whole Kaboom Najin White Sword fiasco, because I think for one tournament to have those 2 games happen is pretty mind bending for a lot of people. So if
Yeah,
you do want to get into that, the floor is yours. Otherwise, we can move ahead to TFT. I'm
no
agnostic about
problem.
it.
So okay, so we're gonna touch on Kaboom real quick, because I think it's there was a YouTube video that ranked like the top 5 worst upsets in esports history. And we're not even talking League of Legends history. They actually had to use esports, and there was like some Counter-Strike thing at number 3, which made it hurt even more. Like we're crossing games here. That's how monumental this was. And I think now that time has passed, we can reflect. Well, it wasn't the dirty. It's not even the dirtiest LOL upset anymore. With I think it was that Russian team. I forget their name. That upset the Korean team, Rocks Tigers. They had that brand support player. I forget their name. I forget. It sucks. I've had a lot of concussions. I forget simple things like that. But looking back at it, coaches weren't allowed on stage. Let's get that right out of the gate there. The only thing I can do is beg Wicked and Froggen as they're walking up on stage to take them seriously. And Wicked goes, "Oh, Jordan, I know. We got this," right? And so that's a bummer. The draft was I mean, we had notes on like what we liked to draft. I don't think we actually did a draft prep for Kaboom. I don't think anyone wanted to. On lands, like we had done a bunch of draft prep for game one, and then like as the tournament goes on, the draft prep becomes shorter and shorter because you've already done a lot of the thought processes. So when you say what are we going to play into Rise on day one, you have to think about it. But then on day two, you already know what you're playing into Rise, so you get to skip steps. And I think we were just so happy for taking on a perfect game. Like I'm not sure if the perfect game happened earlier in the day or the previous day, but I want to say like we perfect gamed them at lunch and then had to play Kaboom at 5. So like we're coming out of that Najin game like super high. We had a I'm not sure if we had a warm up scrim, but we're sitting around talking, eating lunch, and then when the boys are going up on stage, I tell them, okay, take them seriously, right?
Mhm.
Coaches weren't allowed on stage. Kaboom was one of our primary scrim partners too for when we were in Singapore, just because no one else wanted to scrim them, so we could scrim them whenever we wanted. So I think we played maybe 12 or 15 games against Kaboom before we actually had to play them for the second time. And looking back, obviously that's a mistake. You should never scrim someone that's in your groups, even if they are just a Brazilian team. Because those Brazilians got heart. Like you look at MMA, and like Brazilians dominate that sport. So we can already say right out of the gate the Brazilians have some sort of athletic qualities to them. And it's their last game of the tournament, or one of their last games of the tournament. They've seen us play. They've played against us 12 times or however many. They're going to come in with a legitimate strategy. So I take nothing away from them. Like I wish I was on the other side of the coin, and I actually went and coached a season in uh, the Brazilian league, the 2014 winter, because it was the only league that ran in the winter. There's spring splits and summer splits, and then there's worlds, and then there's a break, and then there's spring split. Well, Brazil was going in the winter, and INTZ, I think it was, I was coaching for. No, it was Keed. It was Keed. Keed messages me, and they're like, "Hey, you want to coach?" And I'm not working, and I'm looking at my bank account, and Alliance didn't re-sign me, so I was like, "Yeah, screw it. One split. We'll just do one split, and then I'll go to some LCS or whatever team in spring. We'll just do it cut clean. It was great." But yeah, to not fall off the point, we we didn't have the coach on stage. We didn't do as much draft prep as we could have. We scrimmed them way too much. I told the players to take them seriously. I don't know if they took them seriously. You look at the draft, and we didn't draft too well. And then our comp was just a comp that, like, when it got behind, it stayed behind. And the moment I knew it was over was when, like, Froggen into the dragon. Like, the enemy team was doing dragon, and Froggen just, like, ran in and died to, like, 4 people at, like, 17 minutes. And, like, when Froggen does something like that, he's rattled. If I was on stage or able to call like a coach's timeout, I would have done it right at that second and like reset the mental of my players. I think there's a lot of things you can do to make LCS more enjoyable from the coach's side. I think a coach's challenge is needed, coach's timeout is needed, things like that to help keep the coach more involved. Because you feel pretty powerless. At least back in the day in 2014, when like you literally just, it was like dropping your kids off at a sporting event, and like you just can't interact at all. But yeah, looking back on it, I learned a lot. Take every team seriously, and honestly, losing to Kaboom has been one of the most powerful coaching tools, because whenever I'm on a team and my players are like, "Oh, we don't have to worry about these guys. They're Diamond 4." I'm like, "Buddy, did we have to worry about Kaboom on Alliance?" Yeah, it turns out we did. So if I had to worry about them, you're going to worry about these guys. And then my team always goes hard now in those matches against lower level teams. But yeah, I had to get that off my chest. Thanks for listening.
No worries. Yeah, I think that's a good lesson to be learned, especially once you're talking about the higher levels of competition. Everybody's a threat, right? Like everybody at that level, if your team is at Worlds, for example, you're good. Like, are you the best team in the world? No, probably not. But are you talented enough to take a team off anybody that's, not paying enough attention or not approaching the game with enough seriousness? Absolutely, right? That's why you're there. It's something it is a good lesson for, I think, all players to kind of learn and kind of learn from, to an extent, that can happen to them, and it is easier than they might think for that to happen to them. But it's interesting hearing the story from your point of view. I mean, that is usually what it's usually some variant of that story when you're talking about major upsets, right? Like the top team is just kind of coming into the match thinking that it's not going to be a big deal, and they can look past it. And at the top level, you can't look past anyone, unfortunately. Everyone's just too talented. Okay, so team fight tactics. This is, if anyone doesn't know what this is somehow, I mean, I don't know what to say. Dota Auto Chess, huge mod, Riot picked up, made their own version, Teamfight Tactics, with League of Legends based champions. Super, super fun, stupidly addicting. What do you think makes this mode so fun and so engaging for so many people? Like, these games didn't really exist not very long ago. Like, I'm not entirely sure on when the auto chess mod was first created, but it was not that long ago. And TFT hasn't even been out for a month yet, on live servers at least. And it's becoming ridiculously popular. So what is it about TFT that makes it so fun, so engaging, and it's got so many people pulled in?
Does my mic work?
Yep.
All right, wonderful. I did the thing that I did last time. Like, I muted my mic when I was done talking, and wasn't sure if I broke it again. So why is it so fun? I couldn't tell you on why the people of the world think it's fun, but I can tell you exactly why I think it's fun. I played Magic the Gathering a bunch growing up. Started at a really young age, took it seriously, tried to go pro for a bit, and then realized there was no pro avenue, and really doubled down on League. The game plays like chess. Obviously, they call it auto chess. It has some chess flavor, but I think it's more Magic the Gathering. It's more poker, and it has that League of Legends aspect where you make these like card game like decisions, and then you have a MOBA based result where you get to watch your decisions be enacted in MOBA form. And so for me, this is like, I like pie and I like ice cream. Well, someone just put ice cream on pie, and I'm seeing it for the first time. It's every flavor, like the drafting logic behind picking champions and team fight tactics. A lot of the rules and algorithms and styles that you embrace in picking champions are what you learn in picking cards in a Magic the Gathering draft. Understanding variance in poker. So if you and I played one hand of poker, there's a really good chance you could win that hand. And then if you stopped right there, you would say that you were a winning player against me in poker, and I'd have to live with that for the rest of my life. If we played 100 hands, there's a chance that you come out as a winning player, a non-zero chance. Maybe let's say, I don't know how good you are at poker, but let's say 15.
Not good.
Okay, then maybe 15, 30% of the time you walk away with a profit against me. But if we were to make a 50,000 hand challenge or a 100,000 hand challenge, I'd bet my life on the fact that I'd be able to win. Now, you're a talented guy. You could train. We could set it for 6 months in the future. If I'm saying, like, right now, if we just sat down and started playing 100,000 hands, there's no chance in hell you're coming out of that ahead. And people are going to have to learn to deal with that sort of thing in TFT, because if you're a really good player, sometimes you hate to lose. But hey, we're playing one of those RNG based games where it's not about how well we play or it's not, of course it's about how well we play, but it's not about the result of each individual game, but
Right.
matter a reflection of the decisions that we made at the time, and did we put ourselves in a position to win? And as well, for the thing that makes it the most delicious is that people who suck can still win games. Like, you can be absolute god awful at team fight tactics and not understand a single thing about poker, Magic, League of Legends at all, but just, on your first turn, you get, 3 Darius and 2 Mordekaiser. So, you buy those, and then next shop comes by, more Darius and Mordekaiser, right? So you buy those, and then your item drops are super simple. They're items that go on Darius and Mordekaiser, and then all of a sudden you got a top 4 or first place under your belt. And I hate it when people complain about the RNG in the game, because the RNG is the only thing keeping me from winning every single game that I play. So I'm tired of these silver and bronze and iron noobs complaining about item drops, but item drops are the only thing keeping me out of first place, and the store shops, because I'm making the correct decision 9 times out of 10. Like, obviously I'm always learning, and whenever I do lose, I reflect, I watch the VOD, I explore different avenues, and I'm always improving as a player. But like, that luck aspect is the most beautiful thing about this game, because it's making it feel like it's even and fair, and that's what you want out of a game.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's, what you said about making sure that this is not a game that you can play for the victory necessarily. Like, obviously you want to win, but it's more important that you're making, at the end of the game, you can go back and go, yeah, I played all the percentages as well as I could have. Like, I didn't get the card that I thought I was going to get, even though the percentages said it was very possible. Just didn't happen this game. You kind of have to live with that, right? You can't get mad if you played everything correctly and it just didn't work out because there is some RNG to it. So there is one thing, though, because you mentioned it, the items. Something I've been thinking about is that, while the items are random, I think it would be nice if it was like consistent. So either, there's 2 kind of ways to approach this. One, if you kill the minions faster than me, you get more items / better items. Or B, if everybody gets the exact same number of items per minion round. Do either of those things make sense to you, or do you like the way it is where it's totally random right now?
I prefer totally random, because I think what it does is it forces you. So we like to talk about meta, most efficient tactic available. Just while we're talking here, I made up a new freaking acronym, most efficient decision available. And I think that at the beginning of each turn, you have a set of parameters. So every game starts at carousel, and you're going to have carousel priority in your head. For me, I like Lucian, I like Zed, I like Shen, I like Blitzcrank, and if you want to talk about items, I like Spatula, and then I like Chain Vest second, and then Recurve Bow, which, everyone has their own priorities. But if I see, something on the wheel that fancies my interest that isn't in my top whatever, or if someone snipes mine from underneath me, I'm going to have to go with something else, right? So some games you're going to get your ideal starter and you're going to have a comfortable build path. But some games you're not going to have a comfortable starter and you're going to have to figure it out from there. Like, if you've ever gotten a Negatron Darius off of the carousel, you're going to know what I'm talking about. Like, how am I supposed to work with this? You look across and someone has a Spatula Pike. You're like, why can't I have that? Well, you're going to have to learn how to play from the position that you have. So when I say most efficient decision available, or, most effective decision available, it's really just sitting down at the beginning of each turn, checking your money, checking your health, checking your shop, checking your board, checking the enemy's boards, checking your items, checking everyone's items, understanding game pacing and the power level of champions and the chance to roll specific classes and specific champions and all these things, just running through the numbers and making a decision and going with it. And once that turn is over and the next horn blows and you get another round of decisions to make, you run it all over again. And you can't come in with a strategy in mind and force it. Like, I like playing brawlers. I know how to use Blitzcrank. I wanted to write a book called 100 Ways to Use a Blitzcrank, because I think he's just one of the most OP champions right now in terms of, like, I can have any comp, but as long as I read my opponent's boards and I place my Blitzcrank correctly, I can always peel 1 or 2 characters off the board before I die. So I reach critical HP just a couple turns later than everyone else, which pretty much guarantees me a fourth or third. But I digress. Uh, I think if you want to make items random or you want to make items not random, it's just going to change the rules of the game. But I like to imagine that when I get a lot of items early, that means I'm going to be playing for the early game. I'm going to be looking to build, red buffs instead of Phantom Dancers. That sort of thing. I don't want to divulge too much into strategy, but you could set up the items to be anyway, like how you said, whoever kills them fastest. I think there'd be a sweet game mode where we all get the same items and we all get the same shops, and we see who makes the best decisions from the same shops and same items. I think there's any way to spin it. But as a player, it's not up to, like, I never think about balance changes. Really, the only one I thought of was removing Curse Blade and adding Wits End. So I think level down is just broken. There shouldn't be an item that works against every comp. And that one kind of just like works against every comp. If you've ever had a Curse Blade Gunslinger, you've probably gone on a 15-game win streak because every single comp dies to that. So I think Wits End would be better. Something that steals mana and gives magic resist would be pretty good. Yeah, as far as balance changes go, don't hate don't try to change the rules or complain about the rules. Just embrace the rules and then build your strategy around what the rules currently are, rather than wishing they were something that they're not.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely good advice because, obviously, unless you work at Riot, you have no power to change anything. So you might as well just kind of deal with what's out there and make the most of it, right? And learn to take advantage of it. With that being said, I know you're playing the ladder a lot right now, so you don't necessarily want to get into all of the nitty gritty. But for people who are watching, what are some of the things? Maybe what are some of the comps or the classes? I forget what the actual term. I feel terrible about this, but I forget what the actual term.
I don't know it either, man.
I've heard it mentioned. Yeah. But which ones are, in your mind, the strongest and the best and the most effective right now in an ideal world where you get them all and you get all the drops you want, etc., and the right items, all that sort of stuff? And which ones are the ones that should be kind of last resort? Like, well, if you're not getting anything else, I mean, you better to have this than nothing, but definitely don't go for these.
All right, so I can actually just give you a TFT starter kit.
Perfect. Hit us with it.
I actually had a $1 coaching seminar I put up on my Twitter for TFT. I advertised 1 week in advance and retweeted multiple times daily and had 0 people show up to. So I have an entire lesson that I didn't get to fire. So I'll give some cliff notes here. I'm not going to drop the whole hour, but I'll kind of break into it. So in your first 100 games of TFT, you want to be constantly learning and building new things. Once you start with a specific character on the carousel, you want to make a note of it and make like a log of how every game plays out. And patches are going to do balance changes, whatever, but you need to have a feel for how every character works. So I was trying Elise off the wheel back when she was a 2-star. I was trying Rek'Sai off the wheel. Both those are not very good. But I tried them. I took them for a spin. I was just trying to figure out how everything works. Absolute basic strategy is for the first couple turns, I'd say first 3, 6, 9 turns, you're never re-rolling. You're just buying the most efficient champions available. So when you see a shop with pairs, you're looking at those pairs. You're probably going to try to pick up those pairs. And if there's no pairs, you're looking for synergies. Well, I have a Nidalee and I have a Warwick. They both have wild. I'm going to pick those up. But then when you get the hands where there's no overlapping visually, you want to envision what the future cost ranks of those champions are. So if I have a Lysandra that's a glacial elementalist and nothing else to really go with it, well, I have a Warwick, and Warwick isn't glacial or elementalist, but he is a brawler, and Volibear is also a brawler. So I'm going to buy the Lysandra now and the Warwick now, because if I get a Volibear later, I got the Warwick buff. So just following that sort of thought process and logic to start it off. Moving beyond that, we had a Tony drop out of the call. Is that normal?
No. It seems fine.
Oh, okay.
We'll be okay.
For some reason, just went full screen on my monitor. And it shocked me. because I had Tony up there for a while. But I'll continue on my thoughts. So you play standard, you buy normal stuff. You try to make your gold breaks. So if you have 10 gold, you're not buying anything. If you have 12 gold at the end of a round, you don't want that 12 gold to roll over. You got that extra 2 gold because interest is done on breaks. So if you have 12 gold, you want to spend down to 10. And whatever you buy kind of just becomes, it's like an investment of gold. At the beginning of the next round, you're going to have 16, 18 gold. You want to try to sell up to 20. And that one that you bought to go from 12 to 10 is the first one you sell to go to 16 to 18 or whatever. You want to make sure you just stay on top of your economy. You want to try to get the 50 gold as fast as possible without being an absolute dog on the field. If you ever start getting bodied really hard, like you're taking 15 or 20 a turn, that's when you need to spend down and make what I call a push. I think the game is based off of ecoing and pushing. Every round you should be checking out to see what your opponents are building, and you want to try to just play what's open or what's the counter to what's running around. With the caveat that you should always try to force ninjas because Akali's current power level is really high, but that is going to be obsolete come Wednesday. So I don't think that anyone should really sit down and try to develop a Akali strategy when it's going to be busto in 48 hours. She's actually crushing the competitive scene. The last games I've been, a couple games I've been playing in, all top 4 players all had Akalis. The game's just like super unhealthy right now. But assuming Riot balances out everything, everything I've said so far is true. Playing their strongest openers, scouting, paying attention to your money, and then just making sure that your compositions work together. You're not going to know what goes good on a volley or with a volley until you run a volley. I was one of the first people to put Yumi on the Aatrox. Making Aatrox a sorcerer is absolutely broken, and you wouldn't think about it just on the surface because the Yumi item, when you think of the spatula items, for those of you that don't know, there's a item in the game, Spatula, which has a bit more unique properties than the rest of the other items, in that when you put, let's say, a spatula and a BF sword onto someone, it turns them into an assassin. I had an assassin gangplank at LAN the other day that picked up the check for like 15 rounds. He was a total house. But you make Aatrox a sorcerer because he gets double mana gain on hit. And so you don't even really care about the spell damage. Sure, you do. His Q is extremely powerful. But I would have never found it if I didn't study or I didn't try it myself. And the most beautiful thing about teamfight tactics, the last idea I would have before I pass it back over to you, is that with League, personally, I've been playing League for 7 years. I think I got that game figured out pretty well. But this teamfight tactics game, every single game I'm learning. So if you're just starting out, to recap, try everything. Always be learning. Try to have healthy economy. If you're one of those people that just has to re-roll, like your addiction sensor in your brain is just off the charts and you hit re-roll, then force brawlers. Brawlers and knights are 2 strategies that actually benefit from early re-rolling. And yeah, just try to keep growing as a player. Try to keep experimenting with the game. Find a strategy that works that you like. Write it down in a notepad, and then just kind of put it off to the side. And then if you ever find a natural opener that looked like the one you like, well, you know what direction to go with it. And that's where you want to be. I think just the game is about keeping your options open, just being efficient with your spending, and then making strong, calculated, important turns at important times.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Just to quickly go back to the very beginning of what before you started that, the classes are called origins. Something.
Oh,
that was the term we were looking for. Shout out to one of the guys at UGC who knew that and was able to kind of give me that scoop really fast. Appreciate it. I think everything you said was bang on, and it's been pretty consistent with a lot of the other players who are widely regarded as good at the game and their advice in terms of don't re-roll early, get to 50 gold as fast as possible, make the best of what you got. TFT is not a game you can go into before that opening carousel knowing what you're going to build, right? You have to be flexible. So knowing, I think the advice you gave of becoming familiar with all sorts of different build paths, all sorts of different combinations, and knowing what works, what doesn't, and how it works as well and as intimately as possible is really good advice, because it's not a game, like the regular League of Legends, you can actually plan, especially if you're playing like 5v5, you can plan your comp, you can plan, based on the meta, what's going to happen and what the other people are likely to play. Obviously in this game, what's strong, so what you might see, but you can't possibly predict what you're going to see and how you're going to have to build accordingly to that, right? So I think that's very, very good advice, to be flexible. So obviously there was a major patch, when ranked came out, and that would take us an hour to go through it line by line. But is there anything in there that you thought really stood out to you as like some of the biggest changes, or some of the things that were either the best changes / the worst changes that you were, hoping they fix? I know obviously you mentioned Akali, very strong right now, which makes the assassin comp pretty strong, as well as ninjas actually. Like ninja assassin is pretty ridiculous.
Yep, it's the nut comp. At the LAN I played at, I got 4th place in the first round because I went down to lethal, loaded up a Gnar, won 8 rounds in a row, and then a blitzcrank pulled my Gnar and ended my run. So I got too low on health, but I had stabilized, which is a term in this game. Stabilizing. You're bleeding, you're bleeding, you're bleeding. You make your push, and all of a sudden you have 9 HP, but you're the strongest team out there. I was in one of those scenarios, and then Blitz kind of ruined my comeback, so I got bored. Game 2, assassins were open. I got assassins. I got Akali. I got first, and then in the finals, I had a Shyvana Dragon comp against a Karthus comp, and the other guy was great. Hats off to him. He ended up winning it. I was only 20 points behind. We were doing a Swiss point system. We got super close, but I went Akali in one of those games, and it was absolutely nuts. My favorite change, to answer your question, is adding Twisted Fate, because I think Pirates is something I always try to go. Currently, I do like Shen, but I like Shen because he goes in Pirates. I like Zed. I'm not sure if Zed goes in Pirates. Zed's just really good and probably goes in Assassins. But if I see a Pike or a Twisted Fate on the carousel, I'm going to make a run for it. Now, if 1 or 2 other people line up for it too, then I'm not going to contest a Pike or TF. I don't think it's strong enough. But if no one's walking towards it, I'm just going to take it. Because if I ever get that 2-1, I'm not sure if that's the first PvP round. I don't know the actual number, but I just know it's the first round you fight other people. If you can show up with Pirates there, you're in a great spot to win the game. So I think adding TF was just the most important thing, because it really allows more people to go Pirates. It allows you to go Pirates more often. And the fact that he's a sorcerer, you can go like Sorcerer Pirates, which I don't think is amazing. But the fact that you can is what's amazing. That fact that they gave you gold. I'm sick and tired of all you noobs out there complaining when you get gold from the first 3 rounds. That's what you want. You want the gold, because with the gold, you expand your bench. And by expanding your bench, you give yourself a higher percentage chance to not have a dog shit team coming into the PvP rounds. Like sometimes I'll be sitting there with like 2 Garens, 2 Fioras, but no more nobles. And then two Mordekaisers, 2 Darius, and then if you put level 1s up there, they're not good. And then I got 2 Nidalees and one Elise, and both of those are crap, and you end up getting screwed. So whenever you peel gold in the early rounds, praise the Lord, praise whoever in your life that you look up to for guidance and light, because I think the gold is 100% where it's at, and that was an awesome change. I think Poppy doesn't need to be buffed. I think Poppy's just really hard to build. I saw a red buff Phantom Dancer Warmog Poppy win 19 rounds in a row recently. That was absolutely disgusting. There's no way a champion should be a Yordle and a Knight, so I'm calling it now. You heard it here first. Poppy's broken. Yeah, man, like I think the patch is good. There's definitely more changes that have to come. If I had to invent a champion, it would be Azir. He would be a 5 cost unit. I'm not sure what his things would be, But I definitely think he starts the game with full mana, and he does his Azir alt push. So any assassins flying over get sent back to their beginning spot and then start the round. So that way, if you have a comp that is not strong against assassins, but you have an assassin-only player against you in the finals, you can buy one Azir, take your team synergy down, but now you have an answer to his assassins and can make the fight fair. Because the fact that assassins fly into the backline stealth means that no one initially targets them. And unless you're a big brain like me and trap a melee character behind some ranged characters that has to walk in a horizontal line that can actually pick up assassins, like unless you're doing that, which severely cripples you, especially if you don't get an assassin player, like if you're three-way and you're against an assassin player, an elementalist player, and you trap a brawler behind your backline and you draw that elementalist player, you're going to get 20'd, like 100%. So I think just adding Azir would be the next move. And then just like he doesn't even have to do the full map. It can just be like half the map. And like you can move him to match your opponent's assassins to have like a little mind game. And then, yeah, if assassins fly into an Azir alt, they get put back at their spot, take a bit of damage, get a bit of mana, and then play the game from there. So,
yeah,
that's how I.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point about the assassin kind of counter, because I couldn't agree with you more. I think the major strength of that composition is getting to the top 2 or 3. Because once you're top 2 and it's just you and one other guy, it's a lot easier for your opponent to go, well, I know I'm playing an assassin comp. Let me reposition everybody to make sure that I'm not leaving all my best guys unattended, all my hyper carries just at the back without any protection. You can kind of flip things around. And almost have your your back line be your front line to an extent. Obviously, most assassin comps do run to people who are non-assassins, usually like a Cho'Gath or a Rek'Sai, like those types of things, or Kassadin. So you need a couple, like maybe like 1 or 2 tanks up at the front, but you definitely want to not put your hyper carries at the back and leave them exposed, right? But like you said, when there's 3 teams and it never tells you who you're about to play until the round actually starts, you never have that knowledge. So it makes that composition really, really strong, and it's pretty easy to pull off. So for newer players, like some of my friends who are not as good at the game, that are trying to play it a little bit with me, it's something I always tell them to build, because it's pretty, if the opportunity arises, obviously, because it's pretty easy to at least get yourself to top 4 with that composition.
They should give us that info. So I just realized that would be a great game change. Like if you saw, like, how much time do we get for a round? 30 seconds, I think it is.
Yeah.
So if at 15 seconds, like a bunch of like ghost units just dropped on your board or something, and then like you could make changes and see your opponent make changes in real time, and then as that clock goes down, the done, you're like making your last move. That could be pretty intense. Now I see that maybe more as like one of those like fun game mode sort of things, like AR Earth. I think there's a lot of potential for Earth style team fight tactics, like weekly game modes where you do see who you're playing against, or everyone has the same items and same champs, or a million other ideas I'm sure people could create. Would be awesome. But yeah, man, I forget the original point, but I hope I said some good shit there.
Yeah, no, I thought everything that you said was pretty good. I also thought that the elementalist nerf in this patch was massively required. That composition was just honestly pretty broken, pre-ranked, when that golem just did so much damage, so much health. Pardon?
It still is, by the way. I just theory crafted a strategy where you don't actually eco, but you spend XP up to the brand tier where you're able to access brand, and then you spam reroll brand and get 3 elementalists when you only have like 5 or 6 guys in play. And every time I've done it, it's been great. The only problem is you fizzle, so I haven't fully brewed the strategy, but elementalist rush is definitely a thing. Most winning comps do have elementalist. The thing that makes elementalist broken has nothing to do with the stats of the unit, has nothing to do with the health or the damage or anything. It's the fact that you get a free body for characters that have a requirement of needing tanks. Like if you go Rangers, you need some sort of tanks. You have to get a tank in there somewhere. But you can just, if you don't have any tanks in your comp, you can just say, screw it. Buy a level 1 brand, level 1 cannon, level 2 Lysandra. And you don't even need to worry about leveling up the Lysandra or the brand. because you're going to get an Anivia later, and then if you're into Demon, you swap the Lysandra for the Anivia. But if you're not in Demon, you swap the Brand for the Anivia. Now you got 2 Glacial out of nowhere. And it's just a free tank, and you can control where it spawns. So what I usually do is I put 2 Elementalists beside each other, and then I put a blank space, and then the last Elementalist, and I put my Hyper Carry unit that needs a tank right in the middle. And then what happens is Daisy pops out right in front of my level 2 Phantom Dancer Gnar, takes every hit that Gnar was supposed to take, and he gets a guaranteed flip. So I think maybe they just need to remove it altogether, because there's no amount of stat change. It's just the fact that it absorbs. If it absorbed 5 hits, in my opinion, then it's done its job. It currently absorbs like 30, but I think at 5 it's too much. Just the fact that it's a free body. So I have no idea how to balance it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I mean, yeah, like they half the damage and took like, what was it? Like 15 or so % off of its health, and it's still very, very strong. That's gonna be an interesting one for them to try and figure out.
One thing you could do is make different types of Elementalist spawn, so that it's not always Daisy. So that it has a random chance of being Daisy or some sort of Mage Elemental or some sort of Assassin Elemental, by adding a level of RNG, because the fact that it's always a tank makes it so easy to use. And like, I'm investing 3 or 4 units. Like, so 1 unit is my powerhouse, and then 3 or 4 units are there just for traits, and then 3 units are dedicated just to making Daisy for my tank. Like, I don't even give a crap about Cannon, Brand, Lysandra. I just want that Daisy. So I think that's where the issue lies.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then the fact that, those units are actually pretty, like if you do happen to get to a level 2 or level 3 Cannon or Brand, like you're not going to get to a level 3 Brand most likely, but they're really, really strong, right? So then the fact that they do so much damage, and Cannon's ult is very, very powerful if you position him properly and he's not in the back line, you have him kind of in the front line, and then you have Daisy to tank for him, right? So everybody tanks, Cannon's not going to draw attention. Then he gets a free ult off once Daisy dies. So not only did they waste a bunch of time attacking Daisy, but now they've also been stunned, AoE stunned. And then you can get the Lysandra ult off as well. There's so much. And then if you have the Glacial, then you're getting random stuns in that period as well, right? So it's just there's a lot of powerful synergy that goes with that comp.
Yeah, I have more for that too. So like you look at a rank 1 Darius, like just 1-star Darius, and you were to slap him in a turn 30 game, he's going to do absolute nothing. You look at an assassin, and pre-nerf, a level 1 Eve and a 6 assassin comp can one-shot people, I believe, or if not one-shot, put him at like 20%. I've seen it. She drops the elbow. The thing with the Elementalist is it's kind of the same. Like, you can slap a rank 1 Brand, a rank 1 Cannon, a rank 1 Lysandra, and you get massive value. And I think that's where things need to change. And it can go in either direction. Either make other classes level 1s good too, which I don't think is the right move, because there should be some amount of reward for getting 3 of a kind and
for sure.
9 of a kind. But you really got to find a way to make sure that I can't just like start with a all-in Aatrox build, and I only get a level 2 Aatrox, and I don't get the right items for him, and I'm bleeding 10 or 15 points around. Oh shit, I'm at 46 gold, and I just saw a Brand. Okay, buy Brand, reroll, nothing, reroll. Oh, there's 2 Cannons, no Lysandra yet. Reroll. There's Lysandra. Boom, 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 and then all of a sudden I'm winning. Like, that shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's by far the easiest composition to pivot into, right? And when it's so powerful, to just quickly be able to pivot into that, it is kind of it does cause problems for sure.
Yeah. Hey man, I'm gonna keep abusing it so long as it's up, right?
Well, that's exactly it, right? Exactly. While it's out there, you got to take it, guys. If you're playing a lot of team fight tactics and you're not using that comp whenever you can, you are leaving Elo on the board, my friends. So don't do that.
Never pass the Brand early. If it's at the part of the game where you normally don't see purples, like if it's the first purple you've seen and it's a Brand, like, you have no excuse. You have no excuse whatsoever. It doesn't matter if you have 0 demons or 0 elementalists. Brand is like the head of Exodia, and like, the arms and legs are easy to get. You can pick them up at Walmart. They're flying around. I still got to figure out how to break Braum. I know how to break Braum for the late game. You have So you never level up Brahms or Leonas unless you have a really good reason, because 2 rank 1 Brahms is worth more than a rank 2 Brahm because of the buffs. They stack. So what I like to do is have 4, ideally 4, sometimes 3 or 5 of these Brahm Leonas in play, and then surround them with like one of my hyper carries to give my hyper carry plus 160 armor. And that has been absolutely disgusting. I don't know how to break Braum for the early game. I need to figure out a way to take Braum off the carousel and feel good about it. You know what I mean?
I do it for
But
the item sometimes. That's it.
yeah, but no, I think Braum's a sleeper. Yeah, just like no one knows shit. And the problem with like studying for this game is like I don't watch Disguised Toast to learn how to play. I watch Disguised Toast to see what the half of the world is going to play
Exactly.
when I finally queue up again. Like the meta was changing daily, and I feel like Disguised Toast was like a biggest reason the meta was changing, because I remember we like we were on some Akali day. It was definitely an Akali day, and then I wake up in the morning, I watch Disguised Toast's first game, and he went brawlers. And then for the rest of the day, I just saw nothing but brawlers, like 4 brawlers per game, 5 brawler players per game. And so, like, I don't know what the lesson is out of that, but you got to pay attention to the meta and who's dictating it and what's good, and find a balance between having your own personal strategies that you like, as well as keeping tabs on the big dogs, because those are the guys that are really going to be painting the picture of the game that you get in your ranked ladder match.
Yeah, 100%. You definitely need to be aware that it's the same thing as like just playing regular League of Legends, right? You need to know what are the strong picks. Like you need to know who to ban out, who's going to get picked. And just like in regular League of Legends, I mean, players look to the top players or the people who are perceived to be the top players or pro players or what have you, big streamers, to kind of guide their decisions, right? And it makes sense. Like in anything, you want to be able to learn from people who have invested more time into that thing than you. Right? If somebody's playing TFT 12 hours a day and I hop in and I watch a couple of their games and I see what they're doing and I'm playing an hour a day, it makes perfect sense for me to try and utilize what they are, because I just in my brain, even if it's true or not, you go, well, they must have run the numbers or done the math or figured this out through trial and error. So why would I not just benefit from that learning, right?
Yeah, one thing, the way to best learn from streams is try to find streamers who have enough viewers that you can actually talk to them. So I think
Right.
there's a tipping point when you're trying to learn from, like, I'm not trying to plug my stream. I mean, like, if you want to swing by my stream, you can. But like anyone who comes into my crappy little 5-8 viewer stream and asks a question gets it answered, and they get it answered honestly. I always tell people who can't afford my coaching, come to my stream. If you ask me a question through my Twitch chat, I will answer it. You want to ask me a question on Twitter through DMs? I really don't have incentive. But if my stream light is on and I'm playing games and you want to come in and ask me a question and engage with me, just simply engaging with me is payment enough in my mind. Like
Yeah.
if you're being an active viewer in my chat, and this goes for all stream watchers or whatever, if you got a guy you like and you feel you want to support him, just watch and chat. Like, hop in that chat, because that's what we need. That's payment for us. It helps keep us mentally stimulated. But if you're the type of guy who only gets to play an hour a day and you want to drop in like on guys like me who are literally making this their full-time job right now of just grinding 8-10 hours of TFT, and you see us doing something you don't understand it, just ask. Like, ask why, and I'll either explain it to you or I'll say, I don't know either, bro. I'm trying this shit out. Someone told me Poppy was good, so I'm running it. I got a level 2 Poppy with red buff PD, and I don't know if it's any good or not, but someone said it was, and we're taking it for a spin. And that way you don't just go, oh, red buff Poppy PD, it's got to be good. Doesn't make sense, but it's got to be good. No, he was actually trying it out too. So keeping that conversation flowing with the person you're learning from is, I think, the most important thing, because that way you understand what you're looking at.
Yeah, 100%. And just the last piece of advice I would give to anybody watching streams is to just try and think of what they're going to do. Like when you see their decisions in front of them, try and think, well, what would I do here, or why would what is he going to do / she, what is she going to do, and why? And if you can figure that out and you can start predicting your streamers' actions before they do it, you're in a good place and you're definitely learning. We've already been at this for an hour and 20 minutes.
Really? Sweet.
Yeah, this is a great first episode. It went, the full time basically. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get to the LCS today, guys. We've had too much fun talking about coaching and team fight tactics, especially with rank just being released. So what I'm going to do is we're going to table the LCS discussion for next week, and I will go into more detail there. But right now, Leviathan, I wanted to give you a chance to plug anything you want to plug. Let the people know what you got going on. Where can they find you? How can they find you? And what should they be out on the lookout for coming out from you in the next foreseeable future here?
All right, so I just want to say thanks to everyone who tuned in, who listened. I want to say thanks to David and all the production staff, the wonderful people over there at UGC to help make this possible. Just follow me on Twitter, follow at Coach Levi 7. It's on the ticker down there. You see it right there scrolling across the screen. Boom, go and give me a follow. On Twitch, I'm twitch.tv/Leviathan Live. I stream whenever I can. I don't have a set stream schedule, but if I'm in a game, I'm either local recording or I'm flicking on the stream. If you want to watch me play, send me a tweet. Say, hey, Levi, throw on the stream. I'd watch. And to be honest with you, that sounds pretty cool. I'd probably do it. If I was in the middle of local recording, I'd probably shut it off and throw on the stream for you. If I have parting words for anyone, I say don't give up on your dreams. Nothing is impossible. Just keep working at it. Love your family, love your friends, be honest with yourself, and never stop improving.
Well, that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much for coming on today and being our very first guest for the show. It really means a lot to me and to the UGC guys to have somebody like yourself come in and show us some love right from day one before this was even a proven concept. So we very, very much appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We will be back next week with LCS stuff. I'll have another guest for you. Maybe we'll have two if I can get this situation figured out here. And that's it. So thank you so much again. Really appreciate it. And until next time, GG.
GG.